what is ministry success in a post-pandemic world? So how do you define ministry success in a post-pandemic world? And now, the definition of success in Scripture to me is always the same, which is this. Success is becoming the person God called you to become and doing what God's called you to do in His time and in His timetable. And that applies to your ministry as well. Success is your ministry becoming what God's called it to become and doing what God's called it to do in His time and in His timetable. So, but here's a few ideas, because we got to measure success now on a personal level as well as then on a ministry level, corporate level. So here's a few ideas for you to consider, because it is a new world right now we're living in here. And thankfully, we're not measuring success by numbers alone, which was never the biblical definition of success. It may be, but it's not always by any means. So here's a few thoughts. Number one, success is remaining in loving union with Jesus. It's you abiding, remembering, being anchored in Jesus all through the day, all through your waking hours. You're growing as a disciple of Christ, not being swept up by the winds and of the storms of life, but you're in Scripture, you're in silence, you're in stillness. You've got some regular rhythms in your life to keep you in loving union with Jesus, where you're allowing Him to fill you and you're surrendered to His will. Secondly, you're a loving person. This loving union is expressed in the way that you're interacting with people around you. If you're married, with your spouse, in my case, it's with Jerry. I'm living out my vow to be a sign and wonder, and with my daughters or son-in-laws and grandkids, that this loving union with Jesus is actually translating into loving relationships with those around me. And if you're single, it applies to that as well, with the people closest to you. And then you're stewarding your gifts in an appropriate way, not anxiously, but you're out of this loving union, you're seeking to be a gift to the world. And there's some ways you can judge if you're, how you doing how am I doing in my loving union with Jesus? And I have these kind of some markers to kind of begin to check that out. Things like I'm not rushing, feeling like I have too much to do in too little time. I'm not anxious about the future. I know I'm moving out of loving union when I'm comparing myself with other people, when I'm feeling stress all over my body, when I'm defensive and easily offended, when I'm spending more time talking and listening. So you got to discern what are the signs in your body and in your feelings when you're sensing you're out of loving union with Jesus. So that's number one for success, and I think it's a great one. I've always kept that before me. But the second is success is making disciples, that you're actually investing in some other people. You've reprioritized your life away from perhaps programs and events. Not that they're bad by any means, but you're actually looking at mentoring and investing my life in some people. And you're doing what Jesus did, investing in the 3 and in the 12, and you're looking at that. But a third way to measure success is you're helping the people around you cultivate their loving union with Jesus, their firsthand relationship with Jesus. They're not living off your spirituality or other people's spirituality. And so you begin to figure out, how do I measure that? How do I know they're doing that? So it may be something as simple as, again, you define your core group, that they're spending time, for example, in silence and stillness each day for 5 to 10 minutes. It may be that they're practicing Sabbath for a 24-hour period each week. It may be that each person that you're investing in is actually practicing the examine in terms of listening and discerning God in their life on a daily basis. You pick a few measurements like that. Maybe, and then the fourth way you might want to consider measuring success, it's actually building community. But you begin to think outside the box. Listen, God's an artist. We all have an artistic bent inside of us. And so you want to say, how can I create community in this new reality that we're living in? And so the early church, didn't have buildings. They didn't have the kind of programs we have, but they were very much elastic wineskins and meeting in homes and in the way they created community. And so I want to invite you to think outside the box as an Ephesians 4 equipper, and how can I create relationships creatively? And then finally, another way of measuring success, and a final way for you to think about here is just keeping your work in perspective. That yes, you have a little work to do, and I do too, on earth, but it's very small and significant in light of the larger whole. Tolkien, who wrote Lord of the Rings, wrote this very famous story about a man named Nigel. And it's a great image to help us understand about keeping our work in perspective. Nigel was a painter, and he had a great vision to paint this tree this magnificent tree, but he's kept getting interrupted by neighbors. They never got beyond painting this one leaf in the tree over and over again. And then one day, Niggles dies. And he goes to heaven, and he gets there, and he sees a bicycle, and the bicycle says Niggle on it. And he rides the bicycle through the meadow, and he looks out, and he sees the tree that he'd been painting, wanted to paint his whole life, with the leaves are flowing, and he sees a whole forest behind it, mountains, everything he'd always dreamed of in his work was now completed. And he says, this is a gift. And he realizes that all of his earthly work was a gift given to him by God to do, and that it would be fulfilled fully when he saw Jesus face to face. And so in the same way, success is doing what God's given you to do on earth, but measuring it, always understand the fact of the big picture is to come when I see him face to face.